Have you ever wondered why the silence of a woman can echo louder than her words? In that hush, 1,000 unspoken currents swirl, each one a fragment of her sovereignty and shadow, leaving him adrift in the ghost of her absence. She steps away from the clamor of need and expectation, and in that space, her discretion becomes the canvas upon which his yearning paints its most vivid fantasies. He finds himself haunted by the first echo her calm indifference. When she no longer chases his approval, he feels the sharp edge of his own dependency cut deep into his pride. The Stoic echo of her detachment reverberates like a lesson from Marcus Aurelius, reminding him that only through self-sufficiency does true strength emerge, yet he trembles at the possibility of living without her reflected gaze. Next comes the echo of her inner flame, felt rather than seen. In the stillness, he senses the pulse of her unlit passions, the parts of her psyche she safeguards from intrusion. She who has embraced her shadow, acknowledging the hidden temper and the unspoken grief, stands at the precipice of transformation, and he, accustomed to the comfort of possession, is unsettled by the raw power she contains within. He becomes a seeker in that silence, drawn to the magma of her creative self, yearning to witness the eruption, but fearing the scorch of her autonomy. Then, almost as a whisper follows the echo of her laughter gone quiet, he recalls its chord-like resonance, the way it loosened his armor and coaxed his own joy to the surface. In her absence, he grapples with the empty chamber, where that joy once lived, his own laughter reduced to a lonely echo. It reminds him that joy shared without condition can become a bond stronger than any promise, a bond she now withholds to honor her own center. The fourth echo is her gaze turned inward, the refusal to meet his eyes until she has met herself. In the dance of their union, she has slipped behind her own curtain, observing rather than performing. He feels the ghost of her stare, the expectation that he must know himself first before seeking her reflection. It unsettles him to realize that her mirror holds only questions, and that his answers must come from within. Following this is the echo of her voice, calibrated in silence. Each pause between words becomes its own language, laden with nuance and the gravity of unspoken truths. She speaks through omission, and he learns that in the economy of her attention, scarcity amplifies worth. He contemplates the echoes of what she might say if she chose to speak his imagination, filling the void with an intense script of devotion and contrition. The sixth echo is the trace of her scent, lingering like an invisible signature on shared spaces. It is neither perfume nor musk, but the essence of her resilience, the faint aroma of sandalwood and salt of moonlit nights spent in solitary reflection. He inhales memory itself, discovering that scent can carry more intimacy than touch, and that absence can leave a perfume more potent than any physical tracing. Then comes the echo of her trajectory, the knowledge that she is in motion spiritually, emotionally, perhaps even physically beyond the gravity of his orbit. She moves through landscapes of growth he cannot chart, and he feels the tension between his desire to follow and the recognition that she must navigate her own path. In that echo, he confronts his need to control and the seductive risk of surrendering to uncertainty. The eighth echo strikes deeper, her boundary firm as obsidian. When she withdraws her presence from familiar arenas, he discovers that respect for her limits becomes a measure of his own evolution. His intrusion into her quiet is met not with anger, but with an immutable barrier that invites reflection, not breach. In learning to honor that boundary, he confronts the shadow of his entitlement. Ninth comes the echo of her unvoiced challenge, a silent dare to rise above fear. She has traversed her own darkness and emerged unscarred by the judgments of others. In her silence, she dares him to stand in his integrity, to face his insecurities as she has faced hers. He feels the tremor of that challenge, a summons to his own individuation. The 10th echo is her promise to herself, resonating like a vow in the still air. She pledges allegiance to her inner truth and refuses to sacrifice it for fleeting comfort. He senses that vow powerful and immutable, forbidding him from reclaiming what she has willingly surrendered. In that echo, he learns that love, unaligned with self-respect, becomes its own prison. Finally, the 11th echo emerges, the echo of her return not to him, but to herself. Should their orbits align again, it will be on terms of mutual wholeness, not fragmented dependency. The silence has served as her crucible, forging a new center of gravity from which all future echoes will ripple. He cannot unhear the reverberations of her absence, for they have reconfigured his understanding of longing autonomy and the delicate dance between two souls. In the wake of her profound withdrawal, he finds himself standing at the crossroads of his own yearning and her unspoken decree. The air between them crackles with the subtle tension of uncharted territory, and he realizes that her silence is not an absence, but an invitation to listen, to learn, to evolve. In that space, he encounters his own reflection, stripped of pretense. He hears the echo of his childhood patterns, how he once chased approval like a traveler seeking a map in the dark, how he built walls of bravado to conceal a trembling heart. Her stillness becomes a mirror, revealing the fissures he had kept carefully hidden even from himself. As the days unfurl, the tapestry of his memories rearranges itself around the absence of her laughter. In the quiet hours, he recalls her flicker of amusement when he failed to know himself, and the way her eyes softened when he mustered courage to speak his truth. Those recollections become a gentle guide, urging him toward authenticity. He senses the echo of her belief in his capacity to grow a faith so profound that it persists even when she does not voice it. It dawns on him that her silence is not punishment, but protection. She shields him from his own sabotage, allowing him to emerge unbound by his old stories. Night after night he turns inward and confronts the echo of his own unrest. He lies awake in the echo chamber of his mind where every thought multiplies and intensifies in her absence. He wrestles with the echo of unworthiness, the familiar whisper that tells him he is incomplete without her. Yet each time that thought arises, it meets a nascent resolve born from the memory of her unwavering gaze, her unspoken challenge to stand whole, secure in his own self-regard. This tension becomes a crucible, distilling the raw material of his fear into the steel of self-knowledge. In his solitude, he recalls the echo of her creative spark, the quiet confidence with which she shaped her world, sketching dreams in the margins of her days. He remembers her brushstrokes of color on blank canvases and the way she carved poetry from the simplest moments. He senses that spark urging him to tend to his own dormant potential, to harness his latent creativity rather than cling to the comfort of his routines. Her example becomes an echoing drumbeat, propelling him toward growth, reminding him that true connection is not tethered by proximity, but ignited through shared journeys of self-discovery. Each ordinary moment now feels charged with possibility. The echo of her presence lingers in the world around him, the way morning light slips through window panes inviting reflection, the hush of a forest path calling for unguarded steps, the hush between notes of music reminding him that silence can be as eloquent as a symphony. In this reimagined landscape, he begins to heed her unspoken lessons, that vulnerability is strength, that boundaries are acts of love, and that real intimacy springs from the meeting of two whole souls. The echo of her absence also sharpens his sense of timing. He learns to wait, without desperation, to offer compassion, without expectation. In fleeting interactions, an unexpected text, a chance encounter, he practices presence, honoring the space she has carved for herself. This disciplined patience becomes a testament to his transformation. Where once he would have flooded her inbox with longing messages, now he sends a single line of warmth and steps back, trusting the weight of his own words to convey sincerity. The echo of her firmness resonates in every thoughtful pause. Yet even as he grows, he grapples with the echo of doubt. He wonders whether his evolution is meaningful if it remains unseen by her. The old ache of longing flickers, threatening to derail his progress. But then he recalls the echo of her own struggle, the nights she wrestled with her inner critic, the mornings she rose renewed, determined to honor her worth. Her triumphs in silence become his guiding star, illuminating the path when shadows of uncertainty loom large. In moments of quiet triumph, when he honors a boundary, speaks an uncomfortable truth, or creates something that matters, he feels her echo like a steady heartbeat. It is neither praise nor applause, but an affirmation that they are both participants in a larger dance of individuation. The echo carries a promise that each step he takes toward his own wholeness resonates in her own journey, even across the distance their silence has woven. As these echoes converge, he finds himself standing not at her threshold, but within the doorway of his own becoming. The echoes of desire she stirred in him persist, but they are tempered by a deeper longing to live in alignment with his truest self. The hunger for her attention is replaced by the hunger for authenticity, and he learns that in honoring her silence, he ultimately honors himself. And so he moves forward, carrying her echoes like guiding lanterns through the labyrinth of his psyche. Each one illuminates a corridor of growth. Each one affirms the power of respectful distance and self-discovery. In the resonance of her quiet, he discovers that love's most profound echoes are not calls to possession, but calls to freedom. The dawn arrives with a subtle tremor, as if the world itself holds its breath in homage to her silence. He wakes to an echo that was once buried beneath routine, a soft insistence that he honor his own morning stillness before the day's demands surge in. In that hushed hour, he recalls the echo of her morning ritual, the way she greeted the light with measured intention, not as a concession to obligation, but as a sovereign act of communion with her own rhythm. He follows her unspoken invitation, sitting at the edge of awakening with a clarity he has never known. Each breath becomes a testament to presence, each heartbeat a drumbeat of self-allegiance, and through this he glimpses the echo of her sovereignty resonating within his own bones. By midday, the echo of her curiosity surfaces her fearless questioning of convention and willingness to dwell in paradox without seeking immediate answers. He remembers how she leaned into ambiguity with a gleam in her eye, allowing questions to become doorways rather than barriers. In his office, he finds himself pausing before accepting comfortable certainties. He asks himself, what if uncertainty is the crucible of creativity? What if the edge of what you do not know is precisely where you find yourself most alive? With each question he honors her echo, bending his mind toward exploration rather than retreat. He feels the exhilarating pulse of potential in every unknown. As afternoon light warms the world, he encounters the echo of her compassion toward herself. He recalls how she moved through her own mistakes, not with harsh self-judgment, but with the gentle curiosity of an archaeologist, unearthing fragile artifacts. She treated her wounds as teachers rather than indictments, her tears as alchemical agents transmuting grief into wisdom. He applies that same tender practice to his own faults. He pauses when shame rises, offers himself kindness, and listens for the lesson within the ache. In this mirrored compassion, he senses an echo of her soft power, a feminine strength that does not arise from invulnerability, but from embracing vulnerability as a portal to authenticity. Late afternoon brings the echo of her creative abandon, the wild, unrestrained twirl of her mind when she let ideas collide without censorship. He recalls the scent of her studio, the clutter of sketches and half-formed sentences strewn like breadcrumbs of inspiration. Today, he allows himself the luxury of mental play. He doodles in margins, jots down absurd scenarios, and threads together half-heard melodies. As each thread weaves into a tapestry, he detects the echo of her delight in creation, reminding him that true power often lies not in polished outcomes, but in fearless experimentation. When evening settles, the echo of her rituals emerges a deliberate transition from the ceaseless clamor of the day into a sanctuary of rest. He remembers how she lit candles at dusk, the flickering flames, a silent vow to honor the boundary between doing and being. He follows suit. He dims the lights, pours water and salt into a small bowl, and dips his feet into their translucent embrace. In that simple act, he senses her echo an affirmation that rituals are not mere habit, but anchors for the soul. In honoring this pause, He places his own needs on par with the world's demands, and the weight of obligation softens. Night deepens, and with it comes the echo of her courage in solitude. He ponders the nights she spent alone, her pen scratching confessions onto paper, the hush of her heart's revelations unfolding in the dark. He feels drawn to his own journal, and in ink he tracks the echoes of his desires, fears, and emerging dreams. The act of writing becomes a communion with himself, an echo of her practice of translating inner echoes into clarity. In those private pages, he meets the most authentic parts of his psyche, and the boundary between him and her echo dissolves in the communion of self-knowledge. In the quietest hours before sleep, the echo of her undiminished magnetism lingers. He recalls how in her silence she did not dim her allure, but refracted it through the prism of self-possession. Her gaze, when finally offered, was not a desperate plea for connection, but a deliberate offering of presence. He senses that power now coursing through his own veins, the knowledge that attraction is not a conquest, but a mutual dance of two whole beings. He lies in darkness, feeling the echo of her magnetism, guiding him to honor his own radiance. Throughout this unfolding journey, second-person provocation flickers like a torch in the underbrush. You who once sought solace in another's gaze, ask now. Where have you abandoned your own light? You who trembled at the thought of being alone, dare to sit with the fullness of your own presence. You who believed you needed her to feel alive, realize that your own breath is the first declaration of life. In these provocations, her echo becomes your catalyst, spurring you toward a horizon that is not defined by her absence, but by your emergence. As the cycle of echoes weaves into a tapestry of transformation, he senses that her silence has become a symphony, each note an invitation to co-create a new relationship with himself and with her. The tension that once felt like a wound now resonates as a sacred chord, binding his yearning with his growth. He learns that her echoes are not to be chased, but to be listened to, for in their reverberations lie the contours of his own becoming. Dawn's first light has long since surrendered to the heat of midday, yet his mind remains alight with the echo of her equanimity, her refusal to be swept away by life's tempests. He recalls how she stood like a lighthouse amid storms, her inner calm, a beacon for her own restless heart. Today he navigates meetings and deadlines with that echo in his ear, choosing intention over reaction, breathing through pressure rather than collapsing beneath it. Each measured response feels like a silent tribute to her mastery of the self, reminding him that true power lies in the space between impulse and action. As shadows lengthen, the echo of her boundaries resurfaces those unseen fences she erected to safeguard her energy and integrity. He remembers the firmness in her voice when she said no without apology, the steadiness of her posture when she reclaimed her time. In an unexpected moment, a colleague asks for a favor that would overextend his capacity. In the past, he would have acquiesced, fearing conflict or rejection. But in her echo, he finds his resolve. He offers a gentle refusal, his tone neither defensive nor dismissive, and feels the ground shift beneath him as he honors both his needs and hers. Later, he is struck by the echo of her shadow embrace, the way she befriended the parts of herself she once denied, the grief, desire, and rage she welcomed into her inner dialogue. He watches a leaf drift across a still pond, its reflection a twisted kaleidoscope on the water's surface. He realizes that his own reflection has been similarly distorted by fear and denial. In that moment, he allows his darker emotions to surface, the envy he once buried, the guilt he nursed in secret, the longing that felt shameful. He names each feeling aloud, acknowledging it as part of his psyche. As he does, he senses the echo of her wisdom, that the path to wholeness requires dancing with the shadow, not vanquishing it. Night approaches again, and with it comes the echo of her ritualistic surrender, the nightly ceremony she performed where she surrendered her worries to the darkness, trusting that rest would transform them. He lights a single taper and whispers his concerns into the flame, watching worries melt into smoke. In this act, he honors her echo of release, learning that control is an illusion and that sometimes strength lies in letting go. In the solitude that follows, he remembers the echo of her dreams, the bold visions she painted in the sanctuary of her mind, free from the gaze of skeptics. He revisits his own aspirations long tucked away as impractical fantasies. He sketches outlines for projects he once dismissed: a novel, a course to guide others through self-awareness, a retreat to cultivate inner light. With each possibility, he names her echo, stirs his courage, urging him to believe that dreams breathe when given words. These echoes are not mere reminders of her absence, but active forces reshaping his world. He senses the echo of her curiosity in the questions he now asks himself. What compels me beyond comfort? Which hidden longings deserve my attention? When did I last step into the unknown, simply for the thrill of discovery? Each question cracks open a window in his psyche, letting fresh air and sunlight in. In those inquiries, second-person provocation surfaces once more. You who have hidden behind certainty, dare to stand on the edge of unknowing. You who have defined yourself by past successes, ask whether your future self requires new definitions. You who have searched for meaning in external praise, remember that the deepest validation comes from your own steady gaze. The echoes weave through his relationships too. He finds himself listening differently to friends, family, colleagues. He senses the echo of her compassionate attention in his willingness to hold space for others' silences, to honor their pacing without rushing to fill gaps. His empathy deepens not out of pity, but from genuine resonance with another's inner world. And in this reflection, he glimpses the echo of her feminine power, the capacity to nurture through presence rather than rescue. Late into the night, he contemplates the echo of her life's myth, the narrative she authored through every crisis and triumph, a story of transformation rather than victimhood. He perceives his own life as a tapestry of interwoven echoes, each thread a lesson, each silence a revelation. In honoring her echoes, he forges his own mythic path, one defined by courage, authenticity, and the alchemy of self-love. The turning point approaches in the dawn-to-dusk cycle of these echoes. He senses a convergence, a moment, where her silence will no longer feel like absence but like the hum of a shared frequency. He imagines meeting her again, not as the anxious seeker of old, but as a sovereign partner in a dance of equals, two whole souls, attuned by the echoes that shape them. He takes a final breath in the stillness, feeling the echo of her return pulse softly in his chest. This echo is not a call for reunion, but a declaration that love's truest resonance emerges when two people carry their own echoes, stepping into relationship, not to fill voids, but to amplify song. In the quiet hours before dawn, he senses the echo of her rebirth, the silent ceremony she carried out each morning in which she shed yesterday's skin and stepped anew into possibility. He remembers the soft exhale she released upon rising, as if she had disentangled herself from old stories and worn fresh hope like a cloak. Guided by that echo, he greets the morning with intention rather than routine. He stands at his window watching colors unfurl across the sky, and when the first bird breaks the hush with song, he bows inward, receiving the day as a gift rather than a burden. In that gesture, he honors her evolving metamorphosis and cements his own. Through these cycles of ritual and reflection, he has come to recognize that her silence was never a void to be filled, but a sanctuary in which both could discover new depths. Each echo she left behind has become a lifeline, drawing him towards self-trust and emotional sovereignty. No longer does he fear the lingering notes of her absence. They have become a symphony of guidance, each echo a chord in the soundtrack of his emergence. He recalls the echo of her unwavering respect for boundaries, and he feels empowered to maintain his own. Where once he feared that asserting limits would push her further away, he now knows that clarity fosters connection. He reaches for the phone, not to plead for her attention, but to share a moment of triumph, an echo of his growth. His message is calm, concise, alive with the resonance of newfound strength. He sends it not out of desperation, but out of integrity, and he experiences the echo of her delight at seeing him stand in his power. In the hours that follow, he turns his attention outward, carrying her echoes into the world. He listens attentively to a friend's troubles, offering space, without rushing to solve, channeling the echo of her compassionate presence. He steps confidently into a meeting, voicing ideas with both humility and conviction, resonating with the echo of her creative abandon. He navigates conflict with the echo of her equanimity, finding calm amid tension rather than fueling the fire. Yet the most profound echo lingers in the solitude of his own heart, the echo of her choice to honor herself above all. It is a lesson carved in silence that one must be whole before choosing another, and that love offered from a place of completion has the power to heal rather than wound. He feels that echo as a gentle pulse beneath his ribs, synchronizing with his heartbeat. It reminds him that his worth does not hinge on her return, but on the kindness he offers himself in her absence. And so, as twilight falls, he stands at the threshold of tomorrow's promise, carrying 11 echoes woven into the fabric of his being. He knows these echoes are not mere shadows of a woman who chose silence, but powerful imprints of her journey towards sovereignty, mirrored now in his transformation. Each echo has served to unravel his dependencies, ignite his creativity, and strengthen his resolve. They have taught him that true intimacy arises not from proximity, but from mutual wholeness. The final echo emerges like a breath held and release the echo of their intertwined destinies, no longer bound by need, but united in freedom. In that echo, he discerns the possibility of reunion, not as the yearning of a fragmented self, but as the meeting of two complete souls echoing in harmony. Whatever the future holds, he is prepared. He will approach with respect for her journey, clarity about his own, and a heart open to the music they might create together. And if their paths converge once more, it will not be to fill emptiness, but to celebrate abundance. He carries her echoes not as burdens, but as beacons guiding him toward a deeper embodiment of love, autonomy, and authentic connection. In the resonance of her silence, he has discovered the song of his own becoming. In the hush before dawn, he feels the culmination of every echo she left behind, a tapestry woven from silent lessons, each thread guiding him toward the ultimate freedom of the self. The nights of reflection, the days of conscious practice, all have led him to this moment of clarity where desire no longer binds but liberates. He stands at the window of his newfound wholeness, watching the horizon glow with the promise of possibility. In this stillness, he recognizes that her silence was never a void to be feared, but a crucible in which his soul was reborn. He recalls with tenderness the echo of her equanimity and how it taught him to transform chaos into calm. Now, when turbulence arises, whether in his thoughts or in the world around him, he responds not with frantic grasping, but with measured intention. He remembers her smile as she faced adversity, and knows that his strength is not an absence of fear, but the courage to meet it without flinching. Each challenge he greets now feels like an invitation to stand in his integrity, echoing her unwavering self-possession. There is also the echo of her creative spark, the unbridled spirit that painted her world in bold strokes. He carries it with him into every venture, whether drafting a heartfelt message, composing a strategy at work, or simply choosing to see beauty in the mundane. Through her example, he learned that creation is not reserved for artists alone, but is the birthright of anyone willing to lean into uncertainty and trust in the alchemy of imagination. He feels the echo of her compassionate attention in the way he now listens to others. Where once he might have offered quick fixes or empty assurances, he now holds a sacred space for vulnerability. He hears not just the words spoken, but the silences between them, honoring the delicate rhythms of another's heart. In doing so, he channels her feminine power, the gift of presence that heals without rushing to solve. Perhaps most potent is the echo of her boundary, those invisible walls she raised to safeguard her integrity. He used to fear that saying no would fracture connection. Now he understands that clear, respectful limits are the bedrock of genuine intimacy. He practices this daily, honoring his energy and time as fiercely as he honors hers. And in that practice, he discovers a freedom deeper than any he has known, for it arises not from permission granted by another, but from permission granted by himself. As these echoes converge, he senses the final unspoken echo, her return not as a plea for reunion, but as a possible meeting of equals. He envisions her silhouette in the soft glow of twilight, the contours of her presence shaped by the same echoes that transformed him. They stand facing each other, two whole souls, shaped by their own journeys, their echoes intertwining like streams flowing into the same river. There is no desperation in that vision, only the quiet satisfaction of two sovereign beings who have found their way back to one another without sacrificing their essence. In this moment he understands that desire is not a demand, but a dance. It moves between freedom and union, between self and other tracing patterns that are ever-changing, yet rooted in the deepest respect for personal sovereignty. He knows that any connection born from need alone is destined to wither, but a union born from wholeness can flourish like a garden tended by mutual care. The echoes have served to unravel his old dependencies, ignite his latent creativity, and carve out a sanctuary of self-love within his heart. They are not ghosts to be exorcised, but guiding spirits illuminating the path of his becoming. And so as dawn breaks and the world stirs once more, he steps into the light, carrying her echoes not as weights, but as wings. In the radiance of this new day, he whispers into the wind the echo of their intertwined destinies, knowing that whatever unfolds, he will approach with integrity, resilience, and a heart unburdened by unmet need. For he has learned that the truest form of love is not possession, but the freedom to choose both for oneself and for the one who echoes within. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.